Welcome to the Everyday Magic Podcast. I'm Anya Rock.
And I'm Dr. Sophia Trivena.
We've been best friends for 25 years, united by the belief that no matter what life throws at us, we can always find the magic. Join us every week as we dive into our most intimate conversations about sex, money, intuition, and building our company, Sophia, a merger of our names and the best of us.
The card for this episode.
Welcome to
the Everyday Magic with this card. It's amazing. Nourishment, replenishment, health, rest, self-care are the sacred waters of the masculine making you feel those things.
Yeah. And also you being in your pleasure and receiving.
Yeah.
The flow.
Yes.
The flow of life.
And the metaphor of all these rivers leading to the ocean, which is exactly the visual of this card.
Mm-hmm.
Sacred waters, may we all flow with our heart's desires and pleasures totally fulfilled.
Well, we did just wrap up an episode talking about how the podcast, Sex, Money, and Intuition are connected to Sophia.
Yeah.
And you just said...
I was like, money and intuition makes sense, business and how we were guiding the whole company with intuition. And I was like, the world know how sex matters when it comes to business. How are sex and business intertwined? And it's very intuitive for me. And that always has been, that they're one and the same. But how about you?
Well, what we just kind of pinpointed was expression. And sex and pleasure are a way of expression, a form of self-expression, creative expression, cultivating our creative feminine energy that's been suppressed and exploited, and we are reclaiming. And some of us have more work to do in that area than others, but I think the collective is there's stirrings, right, of reclaiming that expression. And so I think it really, for me, I know that being in my pleasure and this expression is connected to being fully expressed in the world.
Beautiful.
Healing my nervous system, doing somatic therapy and healing. And then the next piece is doing, my reclamation of pleasure as my own and weaving that into a more powerful expression of me in the world.
Beautiful. I know that your coaching really centers on pleasure. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I just got my official, digital version of Pleasure Coach.
Congratulations, Goddess.
Thank you.
Beautiful to watch you do that certification journey and really apply yourself.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, I've been coaching for years. I have many certifications and have gone through beautiful journeys. And this one really felt like the perfect certification as the completion of so much healing and work.
Right.
And because my original wounding is around pleasure and reclaiming that and understanding so clearly that pleasure and shame were mapped on together. And the work of detangling those and creating new neural pathways and new permission, it feels like just really perfect. It feels very, when I do the work, when I'm in the work, when I'm in the community around pleasure, it feels like, oh, obviously, this is how I was always supposed to do. This is how I was always supposed to be, and the ways in which I was always supposed to be able to express. It feels very natural.
Oh, the natural reset. Yes, I love this. And I know that you help women do this, and it's beautiful. I've watched you. I've been to experiences you've curated.
In my work now, even though I'm pleasure coaching, and that might be a new title, I'm pulling on all of the other experiences, right? I'm using the sound bowls, the meditation, all of the other coaching tools and history that I have, and the somatic practice that's been so transformational for me, that has allowed me to show up in this pleasure coaching in a particular way. I was saying to someone reflecting, was just in another container, and I was reflecting, I'm so resourced and I have done so much of the somatic therapy and work.
And we're going to have to define some words. And we're going to keep going to this. But if someone is watching this and they've never, let's just start from the beginning. If someone's watching this and they've never heard of somatic coaching or somatic healing, I know this was a huge part of your healing. It was of mine as well. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. So somatic is of the body. So it's using the body's experience. I remember being a yoga teacher, and after a long and rigorous yoga class, people would be weeping in Shavasana.
What's Shavasana?
Right? It's the final pose of yoga. We're actually lying in stillness. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the culmination of all of the physical positions, the asanas. And it's the one, where many people are lying on their back. And there is often, I would watch several people in the room be in tears. And it's because we've moved through the body and we've released energy. And as a yoga teacher, I used to say, your issues are in your tissues. You're holding energy. And so when we release, it's like maybe someone it feels the same on a big run and they have an endorphin release, or we get like a highs or lows from physicality. Mm-hmm. And so learning ways to move energy in the body, to experience shifts. So I've done years and years of somatic therapy, and I've studied and worked with my coach and therapist to understand and to learn more about how we're storing those traumatic experiences in our body. So for me, when I first met my somatic therapist, I remember her saying, like, it feels like you're kind of living from the neck up. Like you feel very disconnected from your second, third chakra, lower parts of your body, right? Your creative energy. And at the time, I remember she would give me a meditation to imagine a flame in my heart and a flame in my sacral area, like right in my belly button. And I was like, okay, I can picture those two flames. Now she's like, can you grow those flames and merge them? And I would always kind of be like, oh, I can't, I'm exhausted. Like it just was so hard for me to merge those energies.
And this is an energy in your womb space where you had potentially stored painful energy and made a constriction.
Yeah, for me, that's been a huge part of my healing process. Mm-hmm. To be fully expressed in my sexuality, to be fully expressed in pleasure, to experience pleasure, to recognize some of the stories that are connected to it. It's a big part of my journey out of marriage and into being single, and understanding why intimacy was so difficult in my marriage or absent. And now being on top of that out in the world as a single woman and sort of navigating. And that feels relevant to a lot of our audience. I feel like many women that I talk to and engage with are grateful for our willingness to be having these really frank conversations. Mm-hmm. And for me, that is similarly, right? We talked about in a previous episode, like sharing things and being like, oh my gosh, am I going to talk about that the way I did about my experience in Costa Rica? And yet so many women have said, thank you. That was incredible. Or I want to know more. Or I really want to have that. I talked about pleasure mapping and women go, oh, like, what is that like? What does that do? Why would I want that? And so it's sharing a new language. It's sharing a new way to understand our body and our pleasure, and maybe not compartmentalize them. Like business is over here and intuition is over here. Mm-hmm. Intuition feels sacred and spiritual, and that's not sexual. And business is over here and it feels professional. And yet we're really drawing them as
a wholeness. I agree with this. I love this. Yeah, because what I hear when you're talking about it is it's about taking all the parts of oneself and there being the essence of expression. What I'm doing in my business is my purpose. It's my meaning making in the world. It's my offering, as is my sexual energy, as is my intuitive connection. They're all an essential energy that's moving. It's a life force. I'm putting life force into all of those things. Yeah, I think that's beautiful. My experience is that I've worked with people for decades that are come to me more so for the business side of things. But once we get in with their guides and angels about what they need, it's often an intimacy. I'm like, I know that you want to solve while your sales have plateaued, but it's really that you are not being in an intimacy with yourself. So you're divided within, right? And you're not connected to all of you. And so your business isn't operating as a whole. And the people outside of that can feel the disconnectedness of your whole of your inner system and your outer system. So let's start with you with self-love. And okay, so now we got that going, and we got you forgiving parts of yourself, you bringing your whole self to your leadership role. Now let's look at how we make the leadership team whole and all the relationships around you and your relationship at home. I cannot tell you how many people learn through our work together how to tap into sexual intimacy with their partner, and all of a sudden the financial money starts flowing.
Right.
It's like their life force, their lifeblood, they're an energy that gets released on the micro and expands into the macro of actual financial and business success. So they're two of the same. And there's a reason.
Such agreement with that. I think that's the living experiment that I'm doing. Because I remember several years ago working with another mentor of mine, Christina, and she was like, I really feel like over and over again, I see clients who are on the hamster. They're just like, I'm working so hard. I'm doing this. It's not working. It's not working. And when they get connected to their intimacy and their creative and their sexual energy, it leads them to a more purposeful path where their real gifts emerge, and then everything flows.
Yes, I love this. And this is why within 3 months, I published the book, The Power of the Divine Feminine in Business. And right after that, The Power of the Divine Feminine in Intimacy. It's like I had been learning from my clients both of these worlds, that I had 2 books to put out because they're so entwined. So let's bring this back to Sophia. How is sex, money, and intuition all related for us in this podcast? And why do you think that we were guided to talk about those 3 topics as related to the company that we're creating?
Well, I think the company we're creating is a merger of the best of us. And as we talked about, like the best of us is the best of our worlds and everything we've learned. And we were guided, and it was very clear to me that each of us has our own signature of our own work, right? We're building Sophia, but it's really important to me. I still have my coaching and my work and my writing, and you have your writing and your coaching and the work that you're doing in the world. And the stronger those signatures are, they're weaving into Sophia.
Right.
And those are part of both of our work in the world outside of Sophia. And so
to leave them behind we'd be
compartmentalizing.
Totally.
And we're not doing that.
We're not doing that. That makes a lot of sense.
The whole of us.
Right.
Imagine if I was like, oh, I'm doing pleasure coaching over here, and I'm asking women to be fully expressed, and I'm sharing my story of going from being disconnected in intimacy to reconnection and coming back into this vibrancy. But we can't talk about that in Sophia because we're doing sacred beauty.
Yeah, that's sacred, and that's about business. Right. That's not a place to talk about sex.
And that to me feels like a story that a lot of people have about being spiritual,
right,
or being wealthy,
right,
and the taboo, particularly around intimacy and sex,
right. And intuition doesn't belong in business,
right.
And sex doesn't belong in business. And
remember you were gonna speak on a panel or do a presentation. We were talking about what to wear.
Oh yeah, it was my book launch.
You need to wear like a beautiful deep cut blouse, and you were like, but I have to look professional. And I was like, yeah, and you have gorgeous breasts that need to be on display.
Come on, divine feminine.
For the feminine, right? You're like, oh, right.
Right.
Because you had a little bit of an idea.
Definitely.
What professional was, and were
we... Well, I don't have a little bit of an idea. I lived, decades as a mechanical engineer in corporations, as a professor on campus, as a, keynote speaker at Harvard. If I walked in any of those places with cleavage, I would be done.
Right.
Be done. You know what else would make me done in any of those places? Sharing that I talk with angels.
Right. So we're talking about sex.
Exactly.
But guess what? When you build your own company,
you can do all, So basically, I always realized I had to be accountable to the places where my constituency or my clients or my students or my contract, where the connections were. And then when I left all of it, there was oh my gosh, if I really come out and talk about that I'm angel guided, and all of my money is coming from guiding people with angels in their companies and their lives. I'm making more money that way than I've ever made in any other way with all these prestigious, globally recognized awards. And yet I know that if I come out with all of that, I can never keynote at Harvard again. I can never work on a university campus again. I told you about the woman I met at a conference who got offered $3 million as an investor in her company if she didn't talk about her connection with angels for the next 6 years. And she said no. Like, it's a real thing. You pick worlds. And so I picked this world. And in this world, we get to have cleavage on stage. We get to talk about sex and business, all the things. And to me, they're all sacred. Like, people can say intuition and sex and money are all bad. There are worlds where those three things are bad. They're taboo. You do not talk about them. And to me, all three, we're being told the three most sacred things in my life are all bad. Right? Like, values and mission aligned dollar flow is what I've devoted my PhD to, my life. I didn't have children, I had businesses. So, like, that's sacred to me. And to say that making money is bad when it is holy and it is nature expressing through the material world, which we incarnated to experience. Otherwise, we would have stayed souls. So there's that. And then, the same with sex and intuition. People were burned at the stake put in jail for demonstrating intuitive ways. I know someone my age doing the work I do that was in Europe, and he got put in jail for witchcraft. And for like 2 or 3 weeks, he was shaken up when I saw him afterwards. He has a master's degree in engineering. He had sold a company that he led in New York for multi-million dollars and then went into this type of work. And then that happened to him. And he's in the wrong country, talking to the wrong people. So these things are all considered really taboo. And really, what is more beautiful than intuition to me? It's hard to say. What is more beautiful than sex to me? Hard to say. What is more beautiful than the offerings of the businesses and my purpose? Yeah, it's all sacred. It's all beautiful.
And it's all how you hold it.
Totally.
Yeah. All how you hold it. Well, we did have a beautiful experience this weekend.
So here's
Mother's Day weekend.
Mother's Day weekend. We have to start at the beginning of this because this was not on the docket for either of us as we went into the weekend, and it became the highlight of the weekend. And I want to share in the spirit of, you can hear sex, money, and intuition and go, ooh, taboo, oh, risque, oh, don't talk about that, oh, cheap, or whatever. And really, to us, it's the most sacred thing. You can also hear the word sex party, and you can be like, ooh, weird orgy, but like, let's tell the real story.
Yeah.
Okay, you begin.
Okay.
Because it started with you.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I saw the invitation, and my first instinct to the invitation was like, oh, yes, I want to go to this. It was a mystery temple. We'd been before, and this one's theme was, oh, my goddess. Perfect. I was like, yep, I'm in. And then I looked at the date, and I was like, oh, Mother's Day weekend.
And you want to explain what Mystery Temple is?
Yeah. So Mystery Temple is the name of the event. And it's hosted locally. It's a curated, private, invite-only, tantric, sensual experience where the invitees are invited to experience each other and play and sex in a very sacred container. So it's conscious. There's no drinking. There's no drugs. There are agreements made.
Everyone has to watch a 15-minute video on the consent, around kindness, around consciousness, around communication, around making agreements, holding those agreements, what questions to ask each other so that everyone has a shared experience that's pleasurable and meaningful, that everyone's on the same page for the journey they're about to go on.
Yeah. To me, it feels like a very elevated and sacred and safe. And I think I've talked about my first experience on a different episode. So I had, some familiarity. I was like, oh, I definitely want to go to this, and then saw the date. Yeah. And it's interesting. I saw the date. I knew I'd be with the kids, and I was like, oh, I can't go. But as Mother's Day approached, and I was feeling a little bah humbuggy about Mother's Day, I'll say
more.
Just wondering, it was interesting. I think maybe it was with you. Someone asked, like, are you going to spend the day alone? Like, how do mothers get to be celebrated? And there's a lot of mixed feelings around Mother's Day.
Really? Tell me more.
Do you spend the day with your kids? Do you spend the day without your kids? Is it about your mother and mother-in-law? Is it a day where you don't have to do anything? Do your kids drop you off at the spa? There's a lot of different ways that people navigate Mother's Day. Not everyone has a great experience of Mother's Day. They might have lost a mother. They might have tried to be a mother, right? There's so much around Mother's Day that can feel great or not great.
Sure.
I have 2 beautiful kids. My experience of mothering and being mothered is mostly beautiful. I, at the moment, am having, some rupture with my own mother. There's been disagreement between us about what's okay and what's not, what's appropriate. And so that was very much alive and feeling like the obligation. What do I do for her versus what is appropriate for me? When I was married, my husband would often make brunch and then organize something like I'd go to the spa for a few hours. I was going to be with the kids. So I was like, are my 11 and 14-year-old going to plan something? I don't know.
Did you want them to?
I don't know. I was just checking in with all of that. Like, what are my expectations?
What are my desires?
What are my desires was the big one. And so a couple of days before, a couple things happened. Yosef, who is organizes the Mystery Temple, had posted about some pleasure jewelry that he bought. And I saw his story and instantly was like, well, I want that, which I'm wearing today. So pleasure jewelry is like, this is a vibrator. And then I got these play cuffs. It comes in a beautiful box. And we kind of went back and forth in Instagram stories about like, what does mom really want for Mother's Day? Is it mimosas and brunch or is it pleasure?
Yeah, right.
And that got me thinking about pleasure in that context and what do I desire, both in pleasure and then also with my children. Like, how could I create this so it's heaven on earth?
Sure.
So I can let go of expectations of Mother's Day and actually be in what I truly desire. And so that also then started. And I was like, oh, wait, why am I not going to this Mystery Temple event? This is perfectly up my alley. I want to go.
It was in our neighborhood.
Yeah, so I would have to come in from the suburbs. Mm-hmm. It was a bit of a drive. Anyways, I began to orchestrate and also allow for flow and was like, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, also great. I wanted to invite someone and bring you. It was like a lot had to be orchestrated in the field.
And it was sold out.
It was already sold out. Yes,
and you had spontaneously run into someone we had met there before when we were out at a restaurant. And and then he reached out and had an extra ticket.
Right. Yep. Yeah, so a lot of things.
That synchronicity of you even seeing him in that restaurant led to him, right, connecting with you with an extra ticket, which made it the beginnings of being possible.
Yeah. And then I had actually 2 people reach out and ask me if I wanted tickets. One of those ended up going away, but I was like, oh, right, it's possible. I could find tickets to this.
And then I was like, if you have one extra ticket, are you going to take me?
Right.
Or
am I going to take a lover?
Right.
Yes.
And I was like,
why do I have to choose?
And in perfect
Can't I have everything?
And in perfect goddess form, you made it all happen. I was like, I totally understand going with your lover. I woke up that morning not even thinking about this, maybe not even knowing about it, to a text from you going, I think we're supposed to be at Mystery Temple tonight. I'm like, what?
I got all of the tickets. I think I worked it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you do, goddess. It's impressive. It's impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect, on so many reasons, so many levels, it was the perfect kind of like, I got exactly what I wanted for Mother's Day, both by taking the time away. It had been a really hard week of my nanny being out. And so me being kind of unsupported and overscheduled and just feeling like I'm running. But then because she was away, she had all these extra hours. So when I asked her if she could be available Saturday night, it was like perfect. She was still going to get the hours for the week that she would desire. Mm-hmm. I was going to get this night away. And I was like, I'm going into Mother's Day completely fulfilled. I'd love my kids to make me breakfast, but I'm going to be open to their surprises. And we just went into a beautiful flow of Mother's Day. I bought myself beautiful flowers, sent them to myself with a note. My kids got me flowers too, but it didn't matter. That was all overflow.
Right. And I also got you flowers.
You got me flowers.
Yes.
But I gave myself what I desired.
Yeah.
And then everything else was a bonus.
Great. Yes, that's right. Instead of like, are they going to? You don't need to. Yeah. They're going to give what they want to offer and you're going to receive what they want to offer naturally.
Yeah.
And
my 11-year-old made a beautiful breakfast for me.
I was there on video with you when you brought his pancakes out.
My 14-year-old made me a gorgeous iced coffee when she woke up at 11.
Yeah.
And we just spent the day hanging out. It was beautiful. And as I was prepping, they're like, oh, you're going to the city for a party?
On Saturday night before Mother's Day, yeah.
So that was fun. And the Mystery Temple, as always, I felt like a beautiful experience being there. And this one in particular, I think because
it's incredible.
Of the invocation of the feminine, we both reflected. And I wrote to Yosef and told him that. I felt like it was really sensual and beautiful.
The theme was worship the goddess.
Yep.
And they always have everyone, there was 100 people, and it's always in a beautiful mansion and with like outdoor pool, and it's just lovely, lovely, lovely. And everyone comes expressing whether they're the goddess or worshiping the goddess. And everyone was in their, men were in their white linens, women in their flowy dresses and their lingerie underneath or not underneath. And there was like flowers in hair, and there was all sorts of expression of the goddess. There was like the Isis Egyptian princess. There was so many different expressions, and I loved seeing.
Which I love.
My favorite part was just arriving and going, oh, like seeing what everyone their inner expression. Like the authenticity is my favorite thing, and I just love seeing all that individual expression. And then when we go inside, everything's covered in beautiful, soft, flowy mats, and then they come out and they do a whole invocation about what this is and how to be safe and how to express, and just invitations of what the feminine is. And then they had a performance with a couple, and he played a bass instrument and sang in a very strong masculine voice while she did a beautiful dance in front of him. And they're a couple. Gorgeous. And you felt the energy between them. I feel like they set the vibrational tone for the rest of the evening. I thought it was so beautiful. And then we got into groups of 5 because they exactly divided out everyone. They're like, get into exact groups of 5. And then each person took their turn saying for 3 minutes the experience I want to have right now. And it could be inviting of anything. And anyone could say anything that they wanted to say, or
how do you want to be worshipped as the goddess?
Yeah. And we each expressed, I think I said, I would love you to stroke my palms while you tell me beautiful things about me. And then everyone kind of riffed off of that one. Yeah, it was so fun.
And it was fun to look around the room
and see all the different things people were, having the whole 4 people just run their fingertips over them, or like one person had like 4 people kissing their face, or just like it was so many.
Someone feeding like grapes or strawberries.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the men were fanning each other because it was warm. That was sweet.
Yeah,
it was just
beautiful,
sweet. It was just loving and really sweet. Yeah, it's a tantric, very beautiful. And tantric to me is radical presence. I didn't know that I was tantric. I just went to a tantric workshop about a year ago, and that's when everything they shared, I'm like, this is. They're describing to me how what's natural and what's always been natural to me. So I say that I'm not trained in that, but I am completely tantric, meaning that everything is about slow and intentional and radical presence and sensorial and really, really deeply connected.
Yeah. And that's how the evening felt, really an expression of that. And I felt really held. I felt like I had prepared myself for the evening by having a really conscious conversation with a lover about how I wanted to go into the evening with each of our desires present. And that felt like a really important expression for me to go in, and just a little bit of a breakthrough of communicating in that way, in a really conscious way to someone, and saying, let's go through some scenarios and think about what might happen and how I'd feel and what are our agreements going in and what would make this the most fun for you. And to be reflected in that and then to experience it because of that was really beautiful.
I think that we skipped a part of you having a lover.
Oh, right.
I mean, we have been
Updates.
I'm not really ready. I'm really protective of my energy. So how did that change to your ending up at the tantric conscious worship the goddess sex party on Saturday night with
a lover?
To catch us up.
Well, you just have to be open to the flow.
I mean, a wise woman once said.
Yes. I think coming off of maybe it was Costa Rica and really wanting and expressing that I wanted to be with a pleasure partner. And I'm aware I also had that sort of like, I want to protect my focus. I'm keeping a lot of my creative energy for my book, for all of the creative things that I'm doing right now. And in the flow, when I met someone who was like, we have a similar intimacy recipe. Sometimes I think there's this, for me, I'm like, well, I'm just not attracted to anyone. There just will never be another person. And then when I do meet someone, I met someone and we realize like, oh, we have a really similar intimacy recipe. And oh yeah, that actually does feel like engaging and resonant. And then I was like, oh, and I feel an attraction. And I was like, oh, good.
It felt like a welcome surprise.
A welcome surprise.
I mean, I got to witness this firsthand.
Yes. Well, I maybe even orchestrated it, Cupid.
I'm pretty sure I did. Because
like so beautifully.
Well, it was so natural. It was so natural.
Excused yourself at just the right moment of the evening.
It was perfect. So I'm not saying that I absolutely, contrived this, but I definitely felt the flow and spoke to it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is something that I've had in place for a very long time. And I feel like you have been getting the opportunity to flex that muscle more. Maybe, and it's not that you haven't had that, you just haven't had the need to use it. You've been in one place kind of. So what I got to witness was that we got to have dinner with a friend of ours that we've known for quite a while that's been a friend. And it was like, oh yeah, let's just take this friendship a step further. We see each other socially all the time. Let's all the three of us to have dinner. Little did we know that in the conversation, he would prove to be even more spectacular than we already knew him to be. I mean, he just revealed his heart. And I introduced, I think, the question that I love to ask people is, what's your intimacy philosophy?
Right.
And when he answered, oh, this is my intimacy philosophy, it really matched up to yours. And I saw that.
Yeah.
And then it just kept going. I won't go into more detail.
And you asked me mine and reflected in that moment, like, what is it today? Because I think that was a really important moment to sit with that reality that it in that moment might be different than it was 2 weeks ago sitting in this podcast
or
recording.
2 minutes before you heard how amazing he was.
Right.
Like really.
Any of it.
You're allowed to change.
Yep.
Yeah, it's allowed to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And going with that flow.
I love this. And then looking at all the things that are lining up here, I think you two need to talk more. I'm gonna go. And it was very overt. I'm like, are you two good with being together and talking more? And he was like, oh yeah. And you were like, oh yeah. And I'm like, great, bye. Perfect. Yeah. And it was just very overt. There was no games. It wasn't like, it was just, oh, this is beautiful. So beautiful. I'm gonna leave it to be more beautiful without me. Yeah, it was perfect.
We've had a couple of experiences together that have been lovely, and I feel like he's a reflection of the growth and change that I've experienced and worked for, and have called in someone who is spectacular and we're just really enjoying each other. And we both are we don't have a claim on each other. We're not looking for a relationship or anything deeper, but there's a lot of mutual respect and honoring and sacred time. And so even when the sex party came up, you're like, well, obviously you're going to tell him. I'm like, well, yeah, of course. Knowing though he had sort of indicated he was traveling and was going to be busy.
He was flying overseas the next morning.
Yeah.
And then I ran into him during the day of the party. Yeah. And I said, he said, oh, Anya told me that there's this party tonight. He's like, but I can't go. I'm leaving in the morning. And I said, why?
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, it starts at 5. He's like, oh, really? I'm like, you could be, and he's like, I just have a lot of things that are going to take a lot of energy. And I'm like, oh, good. This can be nourishing and give you energy for all those things. And he's like, why was I thinking about it as a drain? I'm like, why would you think of anything as a drain? You can use anything for nourishment, how you approach it. And he was like, whoop. He's like, this is why people pay you so much money. He's like, I'm getting this free advice right now. He's like, yeah, it could be nourishing. I'm like, we could all just agree to leave by 9 or 10, or you guys could, or you could, or you can do whatever you want. It's for pleasure.
Yeah.
What's going to give you pleasure?
The whole point. Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then, so I invited, and then I was like, I still have to orchestrate all these pieces, and they all have to, but we both agreed, like, it'll just be in flow. All three of us knew, like, if it's meant to be, it'll be in flow, it'll happen. And all the pieces came together. And then we had a conversation about what do we desire out of this evening, knowing, where we are we've had a couple of intimate experiences, and we're going into this environment, and like, how do we want to do it? Do we want to go, we're going together. Do we want to go and make it a sexy date? Do we want to, and what I did was just say, like, I talked to you too beforehand.
I was asking you, like, what do you want? You're like, I don't know. I'm like, why don't you feel into what your highest experience would be? What do you feel called to? And you can try on things you don't. Like, how do you feel if what woman comes up and wants to take him away from you? How do you feel about that?
Right.
How do you feel about what if a man does that with you? What if one of them wants to spend time with the two of you?
Right.
Try on each of those.
All the scenarios. Yeah. So we did that and it was beautiful.
And then what'd you come up with?
And we came up with a plan that we were there together, making it a sexy date, and that we would check in first with ourselves and then each other. So if somebody, and he had boundaries and I had boundaries, and like, I think this is a hard line for me. And I even said, if someone were to come up, if a woman came up to us and wanted to engage with both of us, and I check in with myself and I'm a yes, and I check in with you and you're a yes, and then we start engaging with this woman and it's suddenly not a yes, then what? Can I also say, actually, I'd like to stop? And he was like, absolutely.
Oh, I love this.
And I just having all of those and as you said, you've had these conversations and men have been like, no, that's not.
Yep.
And then you can say, okay, well, then I need to.
Let's not do this.
Let's not go, or let's not do it this way.
Yep.
But it was really beautiful to be met in the yes.
You were met in the yes.
Yeah. And even the next morning, I reflected to him, like, I just felt so held by his masculine that I could be fully in my feminine. I could just be in my sensual and my erotic. We got to enjoy and spectate and enjoy each other and be immersed in this environment and leave when it felt right and just feel totally nourished by the whole experience.
I celebrate this with you. Oh God, as you did it,
so fun.
I mean, really, you really just went so true to yourself, went so deep with yourself, felt so in love with yourself, found your own pleasure. And then you found someone that met you in that deep connection to yourself that would hold you as sacred as you wanted to be held. And you navigated with communication that you really never had the opportunity to, because there just hasn't been the opportunity, but you totally have the skills, but you've never had that experience. To me, intimacy is not about rules or time or age or marriage or whatever. To me, intimacy is, what are our agreements that mutually fulfill both of us? How do we keep them? And if we want to change them, how do we navigate communicating and changing them? You did all of it.
Right.
All of it.
Yeah.
And
then I took that experience and I PG-13'd it for my daughter.
Tell me about that.
Who was going on her first date with a boy who she likes. They were going bowling.
Wow.
And we just kind of found ourselves, as we often do, in the car talking about intimacy and talking about, I was like, well, if we just talked about all the things that might come up and what she could say yes to and no to and how to navigate it. And we talked about this idea of like being someone's boyfriend or being someone's girlfriend. And so I said, you could also just have a conversation about like, well, if we're at a scenario in school and we come up to each other and I'm with a group of friends and how you greet me, I'd love it if, we don't have PDA. They're not really into public displays of affection.
Really?
But I asked her to try on, like, do you want him to pretend you're just friends, or do you want him to acknowledge you as his most special friend or whatever? Like, there's some connection between you that's acknowledged. Do you hold hands in public? Like, what feels good to you, and is he on the same page?
How did that feel?
Really good.
Oh my God. Did she love it?
I think so. I don't know.
Oh my God. But she was engaged?
Yeah.
She didn't turn away from it? She didn't go...
She's very engaged in these conversations.
Incredible. I mean, what a skill set. Can you imagine if someone sat us down and told us this when we were, oh my goodness.
And even, I think, just the talking about intimacy at this age, what feels good, what doesn't, I think there's a whole bunch that feels unknown. And she's wanting to explore it, but some of it feels like, oh, I don't want to do that, or what is that? And I remember us talking about your boyfriend in high school and how you said, you made out for a whole year. And then the next year
he went at my top for a whole year.
And I told her that. I was like, what if there's a world in which you just kiss for a whole year and then next year?
Did you tell her that I did that?
Yeah.
You said that.
And it was like,
what did she say?
It actually can go at your own pace.
You can do anything. It can be anything.
Yeah.
Oh,
all these little tidbits that
I love this. I love all of this.
Yeah,
May
it's really...
every single person know their desire and navigate towards it without rejection, right? Like, I think most people won't share what they desire because they're afraid of being rejected. But
I'm also not sure that we all know what we desire.
There's that too.
Right? To really, there's a skill to articulate and be able to express what it is we truly desire, both physically and in intimacy and then in relationship.
I've noticed with you, in all things, you really know what you want when you see options. That's just how we work professionally. Like, I start to get a vision of it from nothing, from thin air, and you need to see two versions of it and know instantly which one and why, right? And so I feel like for you, when we were having that conversation, I was like, well, what do you desire for the night? You were like, I don't know. I started to give you scenarios because then you could be like, oh no.
Right.
Oh, yes. Oh, no. So that got the juices flowing. And I think for anyone, I think it's a valuable tool for anyone that's trying to figure out their desires is try on a whole bunch of different possibilities and see what you expand to and what you shut down to. And so it can be like, do I want to go to that party? Well, feel not going. What do I feel? Feel going for a couple hours. What do I feel? Feel going late. Feel waking up tomorrow and you didn't go. Like trying a whole bunch of stuff and feel what your body knowing tells you. And I love that you did that. And then you taught her to like find a whole bunch of different options. I love it.
Yeah, it was
great.
My
gosh, this is so beautiful. You know, I was watching one of our earlier episodes and it ended with us wishing that we had a double date. I think we had it on Saturday.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Because you had that experience and I was sitting with it was the three of us sitting there. And just as we'd been sitting there for a few minutes and just before they started talking, up came a man that I had met at the last temple party who we had just made out and talked the whole night. But
he adored you. I remember saying, oh, do you have that extra ticket? I want to bring Sophia. And he was like, yep.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
So sweet. And he's my age and we're both salt and pepper and we're both sort of,
he's lovely.
He's British. So we have that European thing we both love. And anyways, he came right up and I swear like,
he was like a heat missile, found you and never left your sight.
Never left. And literally we stared in each other's eyes. Well, we started at 5:30 maybe, and we left at almost 10:30. I think 5 hours. His eyes did not wander anywhere else. He was not checking out the room. He was not, which is my thing, lying with someone staring deep in our eyes. And we talked about being 51 and menopause and men changing their bodies. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling hot right now. I just need a little moment. He's like, yeah, do you know men have this too? I'm like, tell me all about it. We're just staring in each other's eyes talking about, you know, what music, and he's a musician, and we talked about what music means to us and when it started and our first records. And so we just had this long meandering conversation about everything while we kissed and touched and explored. And really that was the whole 5 hours, really. And then he's like, I started to feel restless, and I said, I feel like you're moving from this space. Do you want to go wander? Do you want to walk around together? Do you want to go by yourself? Like, what are you feeling called to? And he said, I just feel like I want to go further with you, but I don't know how. There's not enough space and whatever. And I said, is there a world you come back to my place with me? And he was like, yes. And he was flying out the next morning to Italy. And he said, where is it? And I said, it's just at the bottom of the hill. And he said, I would really not be able to stay very long. And I said, I go to bed at 9 and it's already past that. So I'm like, maybe for an hour or two. And we set an alarm and really literally end the night early for both of us because I don't want to stay up all night either. And he was like, perfect. So he had a car there and he drove all four of us. And I was sitting in the car and I'm like, we're on the double date.
Yes, true. Very
did
true.
you have that thought at all?
Nope.
I did. I had it then. And then I watched the episode and I was like, we were like, why aren't we in a double date? Why aren't we hanging out with two guys? And they were talking and we were talking and we all.
Perfect. That was our double date. Dinner, whatever.
Conscious dad tantric sex party double date. Yeah.
Mystery temple double date.
It was really, really great. Yeah. And we just continued staring at each other and making out. And then he left. It was like just beautiful. Yeah.
I'm so glad you had that experience, Goddess.
Me too. And it's interesting. He's moving away soon and like overseas, and I'm not. And all of a sudden, my guidance right now is to do something I've never experienced before, which is to date multiple men. I have never. I've always been with one person, gone deep. That's ended, and either days, weeks, months, or years go by until the next person, and then we go deep. And sometimes that's been rapid, and sometimes there's literally been years in between. never have I been guided to spend time with multiple people in like where we're actually, I might be kissing three people right now. That's unheard of. Never.
How does it feel?
Well, they're all friends.
Okay.
And they've all been interested, but they've known that they're not ready for the deep dive I'm capable of. They just know me as a friend. They know who I am. They know the depth I live in and want. And they want to connect more. They're attracted to me. They adore me. They're a dear friend. And I've known these people for a year or 2 years, and I've seen them daily at the gym or daily at the pool, or we've gone for walks together, even gone for breakfast, or I've gone to a movie or whatever as friends and never crossed the line. But all of a sudden, I just keep seeing different people, and we're doing the thing we usually do at the movie, and all of a sudden they're like taking my hand and we're looking at each other, and I'm like, they're like, I know that I'm not what you're looking for in a deep way, but is there a reason why? And I'm like, no, it actually feels nice to hold hands during the movie. And then they'll kiss me goodnight, and I'll be like, and they'll say, just so you know, I don't have more to give than this. And I was like, just so you know, I want a lot more than this, but I don't expect it from you. I know. And they're like, but I'd like to do this again where we can be a little bit more than friends. I've always felt it. And I was like, okay, but I'm doing this with other people. They're like, perfect. And I'm like, what? And it's happened with like 5 people out of nowhere. And so I asked the angels, what is happening? And I wrote a newsletter. I write my Sunday newsletter, and I wrote like, I do not know what's happening. And they said, it's really is time for your partner, like the deeper dive person, but you can't just go from the desert to that. So it's good for you to have a lot of healthy masculine, and all of them are so healthy. And I know them, and they're friends with me first. I know what they think. I know how they feel about women. I know what they're looking for, where they're at in their healing journeys or their. And all of it is just that they don't have the time. They're too focused on work. They're still healing themselves from last relationship. So none of them have like, I can go on that big journey I know you want. But they do have like, I can hold you right now. Like, I come over and watch a movie with you, and I sit on the side of the couch. Why don't I just lie down and hold you in my arms?
And I know you thrive when, maybe all of us do actually, but you have always modeled it really well for, you know, there's a thing, particularly in America, where people are like, I'm prioritizing work. I don't have time for relationship. And you've always said and modeled that like the intimacy is what fuels everything else.
I agree. I center the relationship as the sun, and the purpose is the ecosystem around it, like the solar system.
So you're most nourished when you're in intimacy.
Absolutely.
And to watch you be in intimacy with the safe and just beautiful masculine. While you build, right? And I'm having that similar experience of like, oh, this is additive. This is not distraction. This is not taking away. This is nourishment. This is additive.
Yes.
So there's no longing for it to be something it's not.
Right. True.
Right. Which is a reflection of my work and my healing and the person I've called in. Similar for you. You're calling in a different energy of man to meet you where you're at, to nourish you while you're creating a company, a movement, right? So many beautiful things, and this is the fuel.
It's so true. And it's the masculine reaching out to offer masculine holding in that moment. And not because of anything except they want to offer it in that moment. Not because we are in a relationship or it's what they're supposed to do, or they can because we're in a relationship. There's not all these rules around it. It's that it feels natural, and it feels natural to me, and I've just never experienced it. I just feel so loved. I feel so adored and loved up. I feel like everyone's worshiping the goddess.
Yay.
I just feel like a goddess walking around being worshipped by everyone.
Beautiful.
It feels wonderful. They feel wonderful.
It's beautiful.
It is really beautiful.
And it's, I think that it's really beautiful to watch and to witness and to experience. I think that this is the hypothesis that I'm working with, right? Through the pleasure coaching was kind of the beginning of it. And then you always have modeled this, and I watch you experiencing it and rethink the way that I've thought about it when you say like, are you sure you're going to just protect your focus? But that the more we are engaged in our erotic, our life force energy, our orgasmic energy, the more magnetic we are, the more creative we are, the more connected to source we are.
And we talk about loving on ourselves for our health and using our own energy and divine energy, but adding the masculine and its creation life force. This creates a baby. These two energies literally create life.
And for those that are not in a hetero relationship, like it doesn't,
or
it's
heading
really
towards being parents.
right. But also that it's also about, I don't even know if it's the masculine and the feminine. It's the intimacy. It's being
but different genders and
centering the intimacy.
Centering the intimacy. Yeah, I feel like that's way beyond gender. It's anywhere, any gender that's together is bringing those two life forces together in creation, no matter what. Like, and I just feel like it's so fascinating because one of the biggest things that would stop me from that is if I do this, I won't get the relationship I really want. If I let this in, then they're going to have this expectation, and then I can't have my energy for my book.
You won't find Mr. Right because you're with Mr. Right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would be like, nope, this isn't what I want. So if I say no to it, I'll get what I want. Very mechanical. Very, if I don't do this, then I will get that. Like, which is the quantum way is that there's a blended reality. And so interestingly, my only worry about this is if I'm dabbling in all this, am I telling the universe I'm still willing to dabble in all this and they're going to hold back my partner?
But your guidance was that you can't go from the desert to the ocean.
Exactly. So these are all rivers leading me to the ocean.
And tuning your frequency into a different masculine or a different reflection, right? Because these men feel different than these, even though they're not partners, they're
men that adore me.
Yeah.
Although every man I've been, I will only be with in intimacy if I feel the man is adoring me. But these guys have been adoring me as friends for a long time. There's more dimension, there's more depth to it. This is the thing, is the only thing that came up before I asked for guidance was if I'm enjoying these connections, am I blocking my partner coming? And when the angels said, no, it's actually the opposite. You can't go from the desert to the ocean. You need rivers that all come together into the ocean. So I then wrote a newsletter about it. And a woman that was one of my clients from years ago wrote me and said, I read your newsletter. And I want to tell you that if you remember in the guidance that came through years ago, it was this rivers into ocean metaphor. And I remembered, oh my God, you're right. I remember this. And she was one of the ones where I got a lot of relationship guidance from her guides given to her. And they were telling her, she's a bit older than me, she had been in a long marriage with 2 children and was out. And so it was really interesting, the guidance that was coming through. For her, it was like, you have not been out in the field, et cetera. And what you've experienced is, your husband gave you a record that you played for 20 plus years. And when he took that record away, it felt like you lost something so huge. But remember, these men are the record, but they're not music. You own the record player. You might hear this song, and maybe when that song goes away, you won't get that song, but think of how many great songs there are. There's another great song to come. So she said that changed everything for her, that she could have these experiences. And then she said that she basically was having experiences of rivers and with multiple people that she had never had before ever. And she said so much so that she wondered, oh my gosh, am I pushing the possibility of a new partner away? And in the morning, she had been intimate with somebody and had a date with someone, and she was supposed to have a different date with another person that night.
Good for her.
And she felt so bad about it. You're not supposed to be with 2 people in one day. You're not supposed to have 2 dates in one day. Right. Who am I? What have I become? So she almost went to cancel, and she had her hands on the phone to cancel it. And in that moment, he texted her and asked her a question. Hey, would you like me to bring this so that we can have this kind of night? And she said her thumb stopped and she remembered the reading. The reading was that the rivers can lead you to the ocean. And so she's like, maybe he's the ocean. And he was. She said, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. She's like, I believe that 4 seasons show you who someone is. We're both in our late 50s now. She's like, we are in every way have been in bliss for the whole entire year.
Beautiful.
So I was like, she's like, I don't know why I'm sitting and writing you this long email. I have so much to do right now. I can't even tell you, but I felt like I needed to tell you this. And I wrote her back and I said, I can't tell you what confirmation this is for me to hear that guidance come back.
Maybe instead of being in lack, waiting for the big thing, it's like, why not be in abundance and know that there's more?
Right. And just let people know, like, I am seeing multiple people, but in the thousands of years where I'm property, then that makes me wrong or bad or not yours, and that's less, or this isn't going anywhere, so that's less, right? It's all these rules that float around that this isn't as good, this isn't sacred, this isn't taking you to where you want to go. And certainly you can be with a bunch of people in a way that's unconscious or that you can tell is not nourishing you and is not bringing you into the vibration of what you want. It can be taking you out of it. But I look around and every single one is giving me a dimension of something I really, really want. And I can feel my body energetically reorganizing in the field of their loving vibrations.
Great.
So that's what's happening over here, Goddess.
Amazing.
I mean, we've had Mother's Day reclaimed to something that is so nourishing inside that extended to the joy of a day with your children.
Mm-hmm.
We have pleasure jewelry. We have sacred sex double date for the first time in our 25 years of friendship after calling it in just a few weeks ago. We have me enjoying many rivers instead of a desert.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on.
So much.
So much.
Spring is sprung. Summer is your hot girl summer.
What does that mean again?
It means like you're looking your best, feeling your best, and you are claiming this world as your own to explore.
Oh, may we all have hot girl summer then.
May we all.
Awesome.
Thanks for being on the journey with us. We'd love to have you as part of the ongoing conversation. Join us on our socials at Sophia Beauty and join our email community at sophiabeauty.com. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.